But we saw the chairman of Meretz earlier arriving at the polling station where you're at, and they ran a very strong campaign in the last few weeks, saying we're fighting for our survival. What would the political map look like without Meretz? And it seems like they have grown a bit in the polls since then. The question is that going to come on the expense of Merav Michaeli and Labor, who had 6 mandates or 7 even in earlier polls and are now down to 5?
Sorry, well, with a party like Meretz as well as the Labour Party both hovering around the electoral threshold, needing to pass over in order to get into the government, you made a good mention there of the types of campaigns that Meretz was doing, and I just want to show you here the campaign posters that really stood out to me. This one here is Meretz, and you can see at the bottom very clearly a picture of a very angry Benjamin Netanyahu, sort of saying, if you don't vote for Meretz, this is what you're going to be stuck with for the next couple of years. And another one also by Benny Gantz, who's been sitting with Benjamin Netanyahu in a unity government for the last couple of months. Same situation, also putting against Benjamin Netanyahu, saying if you don't vote for me, this is likely going to be your situation. Now, both of these campaigns really stood out as it signals how things are changing this election campaign round, to the point that people are now pushing on a divide here in Israel between whether you're pro-Netanyahu or anti-Netanyahu. Very different to previous elections where a lot of people voted for a party based on their political and economic ideological values and beliefs. This time around, it's whether or not you want Netanyahu in the government or you don't. Israelis are very much voting like that, and the parties themselves are very much being set up like that, like we can see in the campaigns here, specifically of Meretz and the Blue and White Party.
Okay, Tel Aviv is mostly secular and mostly liberal. But let's talk about voter turnout in terms of demographics, not just in Tel Aviv, but elsewhere in the country. Anything we can learn so far?
Well, voter turnout this time round as of 10 a.m. was higher than it was in the previous election by about 0.3%. So while that does sound relatively small, it's actually quite a few number of voters coming out to the polls, and any percentage a bit higher than the previous election is one that can be taken as an advantage. You have to remember that the last election, I'm talking about the third one out of the 4 in the last 2 years, was the highest voter turnout amongst those 3. The first one being around 68, 69%. The second one, last time's vote was about 71, hovering just over 71%. That could definitely be pushed over today. It really depends on if the percentages continue with each hour to have a higher increase than the previous election.